Estado no cálculo da guerra deriva do fato de que o Estado é um modelo de unidade política, um princípio de organização racional, a personificação de ideia universal e um símbolo de moralidade. No mesmo contexto, as colônias são semelhantes às fronteiras. Elas são habitadas por selvagens. As colônias não são organizadas de forma estatal e não criaram um mundo humano. Seus exércitos não formam uma entidade distinta e suas guerras não são guerras entre exércitos regulares. Não implicam a mobilização de sujeitos soberanos, cidadãos, que se respeitem mutuamente, mesmo que inimigos. Não estabelecem distinção entre combatentes e não combatentes, ou, novamente, entre inimigo e criminoso. Assim, é impossível firmar a paz com eles. Em suma, as colônias são zonas em que a guerra e a desordem, figuras internas e externas da política, ficam lado a lado ou se alternam. Como tal, as colônias são um local por excelência em que os controles e as garantias de ordem judicial podem ser suspensos. A zona em que a violência do estado de exceção supostamente opera a serviço da civilização. Franz Fanon, certo dia, disse: a cidade foi colonizada no lugar de má fama,
povoado por homens de má reputação, lá civilizassem pouco.
Mohammed Al-Kha joins me now from Shetara. Thank you very much for joining us. You grew up in the neighborhood. Your family home is slated for eviction. What is the scene right now?
Well, I thank you so much for having me. To start, it's not really an eviction. It's forced ethnic displacement, to be accurate, because an eviction implies legal authority. While the Israeli occupation has no legitimate jurisdiction over the eastern parts of occupied Jerusalem under international law, it also implies the presence of a landlord, and certainly these Israeli settlers have not built our homes. They're not our landlords. They don't own our land. And thirdly, eviction does not imply the hundreds and hundreds of heavily armed police and army and settlers colluding, blowing up your doors, throwing your children from your windows, and using brute force to throw you out in the street and assaulting and arrest you should you resist. It doesn't imply the grenades. It doesn't imply the rubber-coated bullets. It's not an eviction. According to the UN and countless politicians and human rights organizations, it could amount to war crimes. Actually, the situation is pretty tense, I can tell you, and we're very scared of losing our homes to Israeli settler organizations.
These settlers and courts would argue that their claims to the land predates you and your family. Have you been allowed to prove otherwise?
No. The Israeli occupation courts take their documents without verification, without authentication or challenge, whereas our documents will not be looked at. They will not be taken into consideration. Besides, just because something is technically legal does not mean it's ethical or moral or historically just or accurate or correct. We've seen many systems exploit the law and exploit the judiciary to uphold supremacist and racist lives.
You've written very powerfully about being 11 and remembering this incident that I spoke about these settlers coming to your home and taking half of it. How does it feel to have grown up with what you've called the anxiety of dispossession?
It feels familiar because this is what every Palestinian feels like under the crushing fangs of Israeli colonialism in Palestine. My grandmother was thrown out of her home in 1948 in Haifa, and she was thrown out again in 1967, and again in 2009 when Israeli settler organizations colluding with the Israeli state took over half of our home. And this is my second time being dispossessed from my family, should they go ahead and do it to me. It's scary, but it also has a name. It's settler colonialism, and it's apartheid, and it's the fact that these settler organizations are working together with the state to exploit the law to dispossess Palestinians.
What would you like from the international community? There has been a response by many to the situation your family is in right now. What would you like to hear, especially from the new Biden administration?
Well, I think the myths of self-defense and both sides are growing more and more penetrable. People are being able to see through these myths. and call an occupation for what it is and call an aggressor for what it is. And this is what we're going under, where we're facing in Sheikh Jarrah, in Jerusalem, in the Gaza Strip, in Lib, is colonial violence. And it's only allowed because both the state and the settlers know they have impunity. The settlers are emboldened by an apartheid state that allows them to open carry in Palestinian neighborhoods. And the state is emboldened by an international community that refuses to call it out for what it is, that allows it to intentionally target civilian neighborhoods on the Gaza Strip and massacre 24 Palestinians, including 9 children, without facing any consequences. I don't expect much of the Biden administration, knowing that Ned Price refused to even condemn the killing of 9 Palestinian children tells me all I need to know. Obviously, I would like the international community to hold Israel accountable under international law, but I also hope free people of the world do their part to push their governments.
Do you support the protests, the violent protests that have erupted in solidarity with you and other families in your position right now?
Do you support the violent dispossession of me and my family?
I'm just asking if you support the protests that are taking place in support of your...
I support the protests taking place against ethnic cleansing, yes.
Onde é mundo tem espaço. Os homens vivem uns sobre os outros. A cidade colonizada, uma cidade com fome. 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 Fome de pão, fome de carne, fome de sapatos, fome de carvão, fome de luz. A cidade colonizada é uma vila agachada. Uma cidade de joelhos. Nesse caso, a soberania é a capacidade de definir quem importa e não importa, quem é descartável e quem não é. Qualquer semelhança com o Brasil é mera coincidência. Da forma mais bem sucedida de necropoder é a ocupação colonial contemporânea da Palestina. Necropolítica, a China